The dining room was too quiet. Blue lights glowed from the walls. The table was long made of shining stone that felt warm even without fire. The chairs were made of bone, real bone, not fake. And every alien in the room sat perfectly still. Their glowing eyes watching one person. A human Jacob shifted in his seat. His back was straight, but he felt nervous. He smiled politely and looked around. Tall, thin aliens in silver robes surrounded him. Their skin was soft and pale, and their faces were long. They were the Orolith, an ancient race that had never invited a human to one of their feasts. Until now, Jacob was a food expert. He traveled to alien worlds to taste and study their foods, to learn their traditions, and to build trust. Earth had sent him as a guest of peace, a culinary diplomat. That's what they called it. He expected something strange. Maybe something spicy. Maybe something raw. He didn't expect this. A deep gong rang out in the air. Then 10 Orolith. Servers floated into the room, their feet never touching the ground. Each one carried a silver dome on a black tray. Steam escaped from under the lids. The smell filled the air, was sweet, but also bitter. Like roasted meat. And something else, the lead server, taller than the rest, floated to Jacob and placed the tray in front of him. Then they removed the lid. Jacob blinked. It looked like a steak, sort of. A thick cut of dark meat, red in the center, still sizzling. From the heat, juices dripped onto the plate, mixing with blue herbs. It looked almost perfect, but something was wrong. He leaned closer. The meat moved, just a little, just a twitch, like a heartbeat that shouldn't be there. Jacob sat back quickly. He glanced at the aliens around him. None of them moved. They stared at him with their glowing, unblinking eyes. Was this normal? He forced a smile. It smells strong. One of the aliens, a high priest named Diali, nodded. It is a great honor. It is our finest offering. Only once in a lifetime do we share it. Jacob picked up his fork. It was silver, but it felt heavy, like it had a strange energy inside. His hand shook slightly as he lowered it toward the meat. The meat twitched again. This time, wasn't small. It pulsed. Jacob froze. Is it still alive? The translator, a female alien named Sela, stood behind him. She stepped forward quietly. Her voice was soft, almost sad. It is still. Aware. His eyes widened. Excuse me, the creature, it is aware. Not alive, not dead. Between, it remembers. It knows it is being shared. Jacob dropped the fork. The entire room went silent again. The air felt thick now. Heavy, Diali stood slowly. You do not wish to accept our gift. Jacob swallowed. Tay was sweating. His throat was dry. He didn't know what to say. If he refused, would they be insulted? Angry? Would they attack? He tried to speak. I just wasn't prepared. On Earth, we cook things completely. This is very different. Diali looked at the other elders. They said nothing. They just watched. You were chosen, Diali said. You were invited. You passed the tests. You were brought here to become part of the circle. This meal is sacred, and it waits for you. Jacob stared at the plate again. The meat didn't move now. It was waiting for him. He stood up slowly. I'm honored. Truly. But I need a moment. May I be excused? Sela nodded quickly. Before Diali could respond, she gently took Jacob by the arm and led him out through the tall silver doors. They walked through a glowing hallway in silence, till they reached a small garden filled with soft blue flowers. Jacob sat on a bench, his hands shaking. What was that? He asked. Sela didn't sit. She stood near the wall, her arms folded. The offering is made once every 100 years. It is not food. It is a connection. A joining. Joining what? Jacob asked, eyes wide. Sela looked at the floor, mind to memory, soul to history. The meat you were given holds knowledge, pain, love, war. It gives you everything it once was. Everything. Jacob whispered. What was it? She looked at him, and then she said, softly, we don't know where the creature came from, but it spoke. A word, before we prepared it. What word? She hesitated. Then she whispered, Earth. Jacob couldn't sleep that night. His room inside the Orlith Palace was beautiful walls made of crystal, floor soft like moss, and air that smelled like lavender and clean rain. But none of it mattered. Not when his mind kept returning to the plate. The meat had moved. It wasn't nerves or imagination. It had pulsed, like it had a heart. Like it was alive or worse, like it remembered what it had been, and it spoke a word before death. Earth. Jacob sat on the edge of the glowing bed, head in his hands. His stomach turned, just thinking about it. He had eaten strange foods before, but this wasn't food. This was a message. A warning? What kind of creature speaks before becoming a meal? The soft hiss of the door opening made him look up. Sela stepped in, quiet as a breeze. Her silver eyes shimmered, but tonight they looked dimmer. I couldn't sleep either, she said gently. I thought, maybe you had questions. Jacob stood. You told me that thing, whatever it was, said Earth. She nodded. That's why they chose you. They believe there's a connection. A connection to what? To the creature? To its origin? Jacob frowned. Are you saying it was human? Sela paused, then walked to the wall and touched a glowing panel. A section slid open, revealing a small hologram of a figure. It was tall, with human features, but not quite right. Its arms were longer, its eyes too black. Its skin pale-like marble, but it wore clothes, rags, and had something on its wrist. A bracelet dot with Earth writing. It said, Mission 7A, do not REMO. Mova. Jacob's breath caught. That's an old Earth survival band. Those were used by deep space teams over 50 years ago. Sela turned off the display. It crashed near our world before I was born. The elders kept the remains in secret. They studied it, watched it. It didn't die right away. Jacob sat slowly. His voice trembled. What did they do to it? Sela didn't answer. She didn't have to. He already knew. They kept it alive. To harvest it, he whispered. She looked down. They believed it was sacred. It's not just a creature, but a guide, a bringer of memory. They called it the voice of hunger. Jacob stood again, his fists clenched. That wasn't steak. That was a tortured soul. Sela stepped closer. You weren't supposed to know. The ritual was designed to make you part of it, without understanding. But I didn't eat it, he snapped. She gave him a haunted deceit. She gave him a haunted deceit. A lawless sick. A lawless sick. Teresi, long. A lawless sea, to a lawless. My lawless sea, like a lawless sea, like a lawless sea, made Sarli take. My seed. My lily seed, my lolly seed, my lolly seed. We sabed, we is sigbrick, cod. I like it secret, dalad it's off. It is all it's a la, I like it's a kai, bs et I psycho the kai salites, kisikid, tikitid, I to do sub, and you sits it to sec, pusip it. Look, that doesn't matter, she said. You were in the room. You were chosen. The energy from the offering touched you. It's already begun. Jacob took a step back. What do you mean? What's begun? You'll see soon, she whispered. In your dreams, in your thoughts, you'll start to remember things that were never yours. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Sela turned quickly. They're coming. The elders. They want to know your answer. My answer, Jacob said. To the offering, if you accept. Jacob looked at her, eyes full of fear. And if I don't, they'll see it as betrayal, as insult. They don't handle rejection well. He took a deep breath. Then I'll have to find another way. Sela hesitated. There is? One more place. A room no outsider has entered, where the truth sleeps. What kind of truth? The kind that changes everything. Before he could speak, a soft knock echoed through the chamber. Then a deep voice spoke. Jacob of Earth, the elders await your decision. The offering cools. Sela gave him a sharp look. You must go now. Say whatever you need to say. But tonight, come to the East Garden. I'll show you what they're hiding. Jacob nodded slowly. Then he walked out the door and back into the banquet hall. The room was still full. The meat still sat on his plate. It didn't move now. Deely stood at the end of the table. We ask again, you eat with us, Jacob? Of Earth, Jacob looked around. All those glowing eyes. All that silence. He stepped forward slowly, then picked up the fork. Everyone leaned in. The fork touched the meat. Then stopped. Jacob looked at Deely. What happens if I don't? The alien priest's voice was cold. You return to Earth, but you will return with it inside you, whether you eat or not. Jacob's heart pounded. Then he smiled. A little. He set the fork down and said, Then I choose to return, but not before I learn what's really going on here. Gasps echoed across the room. Delia's face didn't move, but his voice hardened. You are no longer a guest. Jacob turned his back and walked away, and the meat twitched again on the plate once, like it was watching him go. The palace was quiet, too quiet. Jacob moved through the empty halls like a shadow. His boots made no sound on the smooth, glowing floor. Behind him, the banquet hall had gone silent after his refusal. No one followed? Not yet. But he knew that Orlith weren't done with him. He had insulted them. Now he needed answers. Sela had told him to go to the East Garden. She said there was a hidden room there, a secret place where the truth slept. He didn't know if he could trust her. Maybe this was another test. Maybe it was a trap. But if he left now without knowing he'd carried this fear forever, he passed. Strange statues, glowing plants, and walls that breathed like lungs. The East Garden was unlike the rest of the palace. No lights, just moonglow and mist. Alien flowers pulsed with soft colors. The air smelled like mint and electricity. And there she was, Sela waiting by a dark stone wall covered in vines. She looked over her shoulder. You came. Jacob nodded. You said I'd find the truth here. Sela stepped aside and pressed her hand to a symbol hidden beneath the vines. A piece of the wall slid open, revealing a black tunnel that led downward. No Orlith is allowed here, she said. Only the ones who prepared the offering. They say what's inside is too much for the mind. But you're human. Maybe your kind was built for this. Jacob swallowed hard, then stepped inside. The tunnel was cold. Not just in temperature, but in feeling, like it didn't want him there. He moved slowly, torchlight from a small crystal. In his hand, revealing metal walls, ancient writing, and strange bones along the floor. Then he reached the door. It was metal rusted, and heavy with words scratched into it. We are not food. Jacob pushed it open and stopped. Inside the room were tanks, giant glass cylinders filled with glowing blue liquid. Some were empty, some weren't. And in the center tank floated a creature. It was humanoid, pale-skinned, wounds all over. Its body, tubes in its arms, wires in its skull. But it wasn't dead. Its eyes opened and looked directly at Jacob. He froze. It was the same kind of being from the hologram Sela had shown him. Human, but not. And something on its wrist blinked faintly. Jacob stepped closer. The writing was old, but he could still read it. Earth Expedition 7A. Subject: Kara M. Dawes. His heart stopped. Kara, he whispered. She was human. Sela stood. Behind him now, voice low. That's what they won't say. They call it a memory creature, a sacred offering. But the truth is, she was one of yours. Jacob stared at the woman in the tank. Her eyes didn't blink, but something moved in them. Awareness. Pain. A message she couldn't say she's alive, he said. Why haven't they saved her? They can't, Sela said. The Oralith don't understand your biology. They kept her to harvest. Her thoughts, her dreams, her pain. Every offering is a piece of her. Jacob's voice cracked. They've been feeding on her. Yes, Sela said, for nearly 50 years. He stepped back, hands shaking. We need to get her out of here. She's not whole anymore, Sela said gently. Her body is broken. Her mind, scattered. But her spirit, it's strong. That's why she spoke. That's why the meat. On your plate remembered. She reached through the offering. She found you. Jacob looked at the tank again. Kara's mouth twitched. Not a smile, not a word, but something. A sign. She wants to go home, he whispered. Sela hesitated. Hurry. Can't break the tank. It would kill her, but there's a backup system. A chamber where her mind is stored. The Oralith call it the core. It's where they keep all the memories they take. Jacob's eyes narrowed. Take me there. They moved quickly through the hidden tunnels deeper beneath the palace. No guards, no alarms. Just old silence and forgotten sins. Finally, they reached a circular room filled with glowing stones. In the center stood a black cube, pulsing slowly like a heart. The core, Sela said. Every offering's memory ends here. And Kara's is the strongest. Jacob stepped forward. He touched the cube and screamed. The world around him shattered. He saw flashes. Kara's face, her crew, the crash, the pain, needles, the tank. Loneliness, years of silence, screams in the dark. She called for help again and again until her voice broke. Then, she saw him. Jacob, her message was clear now. Help me. He pulled his hand away, gasping for air. I saw her, everything. She's alive, inside this. Sela nodded. You touched her mind. You're connected now. They won't let you leave. Jacob turned toward the tunnel. Then they'll have to try and stop me. Jacob's hands still trembled from touching the core. The images wouldn't leave his mind. Kara's broken face, her screams that no one heard, and her whisper that cut through every memory. Help me. He stood in the dim, underground chamber, chest heaving. The walls pulsed faintly with blue light, as if the palace itself was alive and listening. Sela stood near the doorway, her silver eyes watching him closely. You felt it, didn't you? She asked quietly. Jacob turned to her, anger flashing in his eyes. Felt it. I lived it. I saw everything they did to her. 50 years of torture. And they call it a ritual. Sela lowered her head. To them, pain is power. Memories are sacred food. They believe they honor her by sharing her suffering. That's not honor, Jacob snapped. That's evil. She flinched but didn't argue. You don't understand their history. The Orlith believed the strongest memories, those born from pain, give life to their kind. It's how they survive. Without the offering, they grow weak. Jacob stared at her. You talk like you're one of them. Sela's lips tightened. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she sighed and stepped closer. Because I am one of them. And I'm not. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? She looked at him with eyes that suddenly seemed softer. Almost human. I was born Orlith, but I'm different. I hear things I shouldn't. I dream of places I've never been. Earth, your oceans, your skies. I think some part of me is connected to her, Kara. Jacob asked. Sela nodded. The core speaks to me, too. For years I ignored it, but when I saw you, I knew she was waiting for someone like you. Jacob rubbed his forehead. The memories inside him still burned. So, what now? How do we get her out? Sela looked around the chamber as if the walls had ears. We can't free her body. It's too damaged. But her mind, the essence of who she is inside the core. If we transfer it to a vessel, maybe she could live again. Jacob's heart pounded. A vessel? Sela hesitated. A living one. It took a second for the meaning to hit him. His eyes went wide. You mean me? She's already connected to you, Sela said softly. The core reached for your mind the moment you touched it. If you let her in, she could survive through you. Jacob took a step back. No, I can't. I can't just let someone else's mind live in mine. That's the ground suddenly trembled, cutting him off. Sela's face went pale. They know we're here. The sound of footsteps echoed. Down the tunnel, metallic, sharp. Jacob grabbed the glowing crystal he had used as a torch. How many? 4, Sela whispered. Maybe more. Do they know about the core? They know someone opened it. That's enough. Jacob's brain raced. We need another way out. Sela ran to the far side of the chamber and pressed her hand against the wall. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a narrow stairway. This leads to the upper gardens. We have to move now. Jacob looked at the core. Kara's presence still pulsed inside it, faint but desperate. I'm not leaving her. Sela grabbed his wrist. If they catch us, neither of us will leave. The footsteps grew louder. Jacob clenched his jaw. Fine, but I'm coming back for her. The stairway was dark and steep. They climbed quickly, their breaths echoing in the silence. When they reached the top, they emerged into the east garden again. The night sky above was full of strange stars, sharp and white like shards of glass dot. Jacob bent down, catching his breath. What now? They're going to hunt us. They'll expect you to run, Sela said. But if you hide, they'll search the entire palace. The only way to stop them is to play their game. What game? He asked. The ritual, she said. They believe you're resisting because you don't understand the offering. If you act like you've changed your mind, they'll bring you closer to the core. And that's when we strike. Jacob frowned. Strike? What are you planning? Sela met his gaze. Destroy the offering. Destroy the core. If we do that, Kara's suffering ends. The Orlith will never take another memory like this again. Jacob thought of Kara's face, floating in that tank, her silent plea. He nodded slowly. Then we do it. But I'll need your help. You'll have it, Sela said, but we'll only get one chance. Before dawn, Jacob returned to his room. He didn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, Kara's memories flooded his mind, her laughter before the crash. The terror when the Orlith found her, the endless loneliness. He could feel her spirit clinging to him like smoke. When morning came, the elders summoned him again. Dili, the high priest, stood in the center of the banquet hall. His voice was sharp. Have you decided, Jacob, of earth? Will you accept our gift?" Jacob forced a calm expression. "I will, tonight." The elders murmured in approval, but as Jacob looked across the hall, he saw Sela standing in the shadows. She gave him a small nod, a silent promise. Tonight, they would end it. The banquet hall was glowing again, but this time, Jacob didn't feel like a guest. He felt like prey. The silver-robed Orlith stood in a circle around him, their eyes no longer curious, but expectant. Hungry, in the middle of the chamber, sat the new offering, covered with a shimmering dome. The scent in the air was stronger now, thick and sweet. With something foul hidden beneath, Jacob sat at the center table once more. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded like a drum. He glanced around the room. Sela was there, standing behind the elders. Her face calm, but her eyes fixed on him. They had one chance. A deep gong rang through the hall. Dealey stepped forward, arms raised. "Jacob of Earth, you have chosen to accept the offering. Let your soul be opened. Let the memory enter." Jacob forced a nod. "I am ready." The silver dome lifted. The offering this time was no longer twitching. It was still, but too perfect. Smooth, marbled flesh with strange patterns across it like veins that didn't belong. A thick red juice steamed gently. Dripping across the plate, Jacob picked up the alien fork again. He brought it close to the meat, and then, just before touching it, he pressed his palm flat against the table's center where Sela had told him. The hidden core pulse was strongest. He whispered a word. Not Orlith, not human. Kara's word, home. The moment his hand touched the pulse point, something changed. The table shivered. The meat darkened. And Jacob gasped, his body jolting as if struck by lightning. The hall vanished. He wasn't sitting anymore. He was falling through light, through blood. Jacob screamed as memory after memory rushed into him like a flood bursting through a broken dam. He saw Kara young, laughing, walking on a green field on Earth. Then dashed screams, the crash, the black sky, the sharp alien claws grabbing her tubes, cold water floating in the tank. Screaming, but no sound came out. She watched her crew die one by one, some eaten, some drained. Of memories, she stayed alive. Barely, because they wanted her mind. Her dreams, they fed on her hope, and every year they cut a piece of her. Let it grow. Let it scream. Let it remember, and served it to others, to guests, to worshippers. Jacob saw himself sitting at the table, holding the fork and carrying inside the offering, watching through that single piece of flesh. She had reached him because she was already inside. "Him, help me." Her voice cried again in his mind. Jacob opened his eyes. He was back in the hall, but it wasn't the same. The walls were dripping. The air was thick. The aliens were no longer statues. They were watching him with wide, glowing eyes. Some smiled, some whispered, some cried. Because they felt it too. The flood had touched all of them. Jacob stood slowly. The fork dropped from his hand, clattering to the floor. "I saw her," he said aloud. "I saw the truth." The elders didn't move. Jacob pointed at Dealey. "You've built your rituals on pain, all feeding off memories that don't belong to you. That ends tonight." Dealey's voice was low and firm. "You have seen. You are part of the offering now. This is your place." "I never asked for this," Jacob shouted. "You accepted it when you sat at this table," Dealey replied coldly. "You were chosen." Jacob's body still trembled from the visions, but his voice was firm. "She chose me, not you." Then he turned toward Sela. She stepped forward and slid a small device from her robe, a glowing crystal with ancient markings. She tossed it to Jacob. "The core is tied to the offering chamber," she said. "This breaks here, the link collapses. Jacob held it tightly. It pulsed in his palm like a living heart. Dealey raised a hand. Do not destroy it. If you do, you will erase her. You will end her completely. Jacob's eyes burned. No, I'll set her free. The elders began to move, slowly, cautiously. Their robes slithered as they formed a circle around Jacob. He stepped back, holding the crystal high. Sela shouted, "Now!" She pulled a glowing blade from her side and slashed one of the light panels. The entire room flickered. Jacob hurled the crystal to the ground. The impact wasn't loud, but the effect was instant. A pulse of white light exploded across the hall. The walls cracked, the floor shook, and the meat on the table sizzled and turned to ash. Jacob collapsed as the energy wave passed through him. When he opened his eyes, he was alone. The banquet hall was in ruins. The silver plates were melted. The seats were broken. The walls no longer pulsed. Everything was quiet. Then he heard a voice in his mind, soft, tired, but no longer in pain. "Thank you." He smiled weakly. "Kara, I'm not scared anymore." And then she was gone, really gone. No more screams, no more suffering. Jacob sat in the middle of the ruined hall, breathing hard, his face wet with tears. Sela appeared through the broken doorway. "You did it. You broke the cycle." He looked at her. "What happens now?" She looked up at the dark ceiling. "Now, the Orlith have to decide who they are without the offering. And me. You," she said softly, "are going to need to run." Jacob ran. He didn't know where to go on, like that the walls behind him had started screaming. Not with voices, but with alarms. Blue lights flashed violently as the palace woke from its ancient peace. The floor pulsed red. Doors locked one by one. Silver-armored guards poured from hidden passages like flowing water. He ducked into a narrow hallway. Heart racing, lungs burning. The hall twisted like a maze, made to confuse. Above, alien symbols glowed like warnings he couldn't read. Behind him, heavy footsteps grew louder. Sela appeared from a side door, face pale, breathing hard. "They're sealing the palace. We have minutes, maybe less." "Where do we go?" Jacob shouted. "Out the east tower. There's a sky bridge. I can open it, but only once." They sprinted together, dodging around statues and broken columns. The destruction in the banquet hall had sent a shock through the palace. Some aliens fled. Others searched. Some just stared at the walls as if waiting for orders. The Orlith had never been without there. Offering now, they didn't know what to believe. They reached the base of the east, Tweeds, long spiral stairs glowing faintly. Jacob turned to Sela. "Tell me the truth. Are they going to kill me?" She didn't look at him. "No, they're going to keep you, lock you up, study you. You broke their sacred cycle, and now you're the only link to what they lost." Jacob's stomach twisted. They fed off Kara for 50 years. "I won't be next." He took the stairs two at a time. At the top, a thin metal bridge stretched between the tower and a jagged rock cliff beyond the palace. Wind howled across the drop. No rails. No safety. Just a path in the sky. Sela pressed her hand to the bridge's control panel. It shimmered and activated. Forming a glowing path, Jacob hesitated. "You coming?" Sela looked back at the palace. "No," she said softly. "What?" Jacob turned. Surprised? Why not? She stepped back. "I was made from the offering, Jacob. From Kara, I can't leave. I'm not like you, not fully. If I go too far from the core chamber, my body weakens." "But the core is gone," he said. She nodded. "Yes, and I'm fading. Slowly, but I wanted to see you free." He stared at her, this strange woman, who had saved him, who was somehow both Orlith and human. A creation and a friend. He stepped forward. "Come with me anyway. We'll find a way to help you. Earth has tech, doctors, minds that think differently." Sela smiled gently. "You're kind, Jacob. But my place was here. And now, maybe, I get to rest, like she did." Before he could answer, a shout echoed behind them. Guard Sela shoved him onto the bridge. "Go." He backed up. "I'm not leaving you to die. I'm already dying," she shouted. "If you stay, everything we fought for ends here. Please, make it worth something." Jacob hesitated. Then he nodded, eyes full of pain, and ran. The wind roared around him. The sky was darker now, the stars faint above the glowing city. As he reached the other side of the bridge, he heard the crack of energy weapons. Sela's voice stunned, then dash. Nothing, just the wind. Jacob didn't stop running until he reached the edge of the jungle outside the city. He dropped to his knees beneath a glowing tree and gasped for air. The jungle was thick, alive with strange sounds and glowing creatures. It was a death zone for most travelers, but he didn't care. Anything was better than going back. He looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there was Earth, home, and somewhere inside him. Kara's voice was gone, but her memory wasn't. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the small data crystal Sela had given him before the escape. It wasn't large, barely the size of a nail, but it was heavy with information. Everything they ever took from her, Sela had said. Memories, feelings, names. If Earth can decode this, maybe you can give her story to the world. Jacob stared at it. Maybe he couldn't save Kara's body, but he could save her truth. The next morning, Jacob found a human rescue beacon near the old crash zone where Kara's ship had once landed. It was covered in moss, hidden under vines. Forgotten, but it still worked. He activated it and waited. 3 days later, a human ship descended from orbit. Jacob was taken aboard, weak but alive. He didn't speak at first. He just handed the crystal to the medtech and whispered, "Her name was Kara Dawes. Don't let them erase her." Weeks passed. Earth scientists studied the crystal. What they found inside changed everything. Not just Kara's memories, but records of Orlith rituals, galactic locations, and other species who had vanished. Perhaps fed upon, perhaps still held. Jacob gave interviews. He told the world the truth. Some called him a hero. Others didn't believe. But one thing was clear. He had brought back more than just memories. He had brought back a message. 2 months later, Jacob stood on a stage under a silver dome at Unity Station, Earth's largest orbiting outpost. Reporters packed the room. Lights flashed, cameras rolled. Behind him, a large screen showed Kara's face, the image recovered from the data crystal. Her eyes looked distant. Her expression was calm. She was no longer just a name. She was history. Jacob stepped up to the microphone. His voice was quiet, but steady. "Kara Dawes didn't die in a crash," he said. "She didn't vanish without reason. She was taken. She was used. And she fought for 50 years to send us a message." He held up the data crystal. "This contains everything the Orlith stole. Memories from others, knowledge, names, places, but most of all, it contains truth." He paused. The room was silent. "Some of you think I'm exaggerating, that what I saw on their planet wasn't real. That the Orlith are peaceful, wise, holy. I thought the same, until they offered me her." A wave of murmurs moved through the crowd. Jacob looked down, remembering that awful plate, the meat that twitched, that watched, that waited. They dressed it up, called it a gift, a ritual. But I've tasted enough cultures to know the difference between food and a lie. He looked into the crowd. I broke the offering. I shattered the cycle. But that wasn't just for Kara. It was for every voice, trapped in their sacred meals. For every species that vanished under the name of peace. He took a breath. I'm not a soldier, not a hero. I was just a man sent to dinner. Then, his voice grew stronger. But now, I'm telling you, this our people must never go blind into another feast. After the broadcast, the data from the crystals spread across the galaxy. Some worlds denied the truth, others investigated. The Galactic Council was forced to open files long buried, and slowly, the legend of Kara Dawes began to grow. Jacob didn't return to Earth. Instead, he joined a new mission, a quiet group of humans and aliens searching the stars for signs of other offerings. Kara's memories had revealed planets where the Orlith once traveled. Places where strange disappearances had occurred. Some led nowhere. Others opened nightmares. On a dead moon, they found a temple filled with dried bone skulls, marked with the Orlith symbol for purity. On a drifting station, they discovered cryopod survivors still breathing, still dreaming, but never woken. Jacob kept going. Not for glory, but for her. One evening, as his team camped beneath a red sky on a forgotten world, Jacob sat alone with a small device in his hand. It was a simple recorder. He pressed it. His voice was soft. This is for you. Kara, you didn't get to speak. They stole your voice, your choices, your time. But not your story. Not anymore. He looked up at the stars. Because I'm still carrying it. He paused, then smiled sadly. I hope, wherever you are, you found peace. I hope. Earth remembers you now. He turned off the recorder and placed it beside a tree with glowing leaves. Then he stood up. The stars above didn't answer, but the wind through the trees almost sounded like a whisper. Thank you. Back on Earth, a statue was built in Kara's memory, made of polished silver and glass. It stood in the garden of the Space Exploration Museum. Her face looked toward the stars. At her feet, the words, "She was not food. She was the future." People came from all over the world to see it. Some cried. Some stood in silence. Children asked their parents who she was, and slowly, humanity remembered. As for the Orlith, no one saw them again for many years. Some say they went into hiding. Others say they were ashamed, but deep in the galaxy, a human signal was picked up one of Earth's probes. The message was simple. No more offerings, no more silence. We are not afraid of the truth. Jacob never stopped traveling. He carried the crystal copy of Kara's memories in a secure vault. With a backup encoded into his ship's AI, he told her story to those who would listen. 2 young aliens, afraid to speak. 2 refugees without homes. 1 girl, a young alien hybrid with silver eyes, once asked him, "Was she your friend?" He smiled. "She became one, even though we never met." The girl tilted her head. "Then why do you look sad?" "Because," Jacob said, "she gave everything and never got to live free." The girl thought for a moment. Then she hugged him. And in that small act, something healed. Years later, in a distant part of the galaxy, long after Jacob's own time had passed, another team found the ruins of the Orlith Palace. Dust covered the stones. The banquet hall was cracked and silent. But in the center of the room, carved deep into the black stone table, someone had written one final message. "We are not food. We are not yours. We are not forgotten." And beneath it, human.